Welcome to the Coach Barnabas podcast. It's time to take a few minutes and leave behind the stuff that drains us and recharge our batteries with some encouragement and insight. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Hi, welcome back to Coach Barnabas. Or if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you. My name's Corey. This is episode 41. And actually, I'm going to take things a little bit differently than I normally do in that this is going to be like a 3-part series of videos. Because I want to share with you 3 stories that all have kind of a theme to them. But I don't want to put it all into one video. I think just make it too long. And I want each story to carry kind of its own weight that will kind of culminate in the 3rd video in this series. So, the theme to this little series, and there'll be 3 of them. This is the first of 3. And the theme to them are times in my life when I quit on something. Actually, the first 2 stories are stories of where I quit on something based on the behavior of other people. In some cases, how I was treated directly or how I felt indirectly by the behavior of other people. So, and then one story is going to be about a time where I believe, in those who knew me at the time, like my parents, my family, and others, would support the fact that I was mistreated in a couple of circumstances, but I didn't quit. So that's how it's going to kind of culminate after this series of 3 videos. So, but let me start with a circumstance that happened, and I apologize with the lighting because the sun is moving. I'm out at a state park, and as I look at this, I'm shadowed from like my eyebrows up, so it's shifting. Anyway, the first story is when I was 13 years old. I graduated from Little League baseball into Senior League baseball. So Senior League played on a standard size field where the bases are 90 feet, distance from each other, and the pitcher's mound is 60 feet 6 inches, which is regulation for college and pros and all that stuff. Little League is a shorter, I think it's 45 feet for the pitcher's mound, and I think the bases are 60 feet, something like that, and shorter fences and all that. So now I'm playing on like a regulation size field. It was great. I was all excited about it. But I was also on the younger end of the scale. It was ages 13, 14, and 15. I was 13 years old on a really good team. I was very happy. I loved playing baseball. It was my favorite sport to play. Wasn't necessarily the best at it, but I enjoyed it. It was my favorite sport to play. And the team I was on was our coach, our manager, was a good guy, knew baseball, but he was very loose on disciplining the players. For instance, I grew up, from 9, 10, 11, 12 years old playing in Little League, where you were expected to behave properly as a kid. And I got on this team, and a lot of the kids were very foul-mouthed and told very inappropriate jokes, this kind of stuff, where I was kind of stunned because the coaches never blinked. They never, hey, knock that off or whatever. None of that stuff. But there was one particular game where we were in the first base dugout. So if you're at all baseball familiar, you're familiar with the bases and everything. There's a dugout on the first base side and a dugout on the third base side. So we're on the first base dugout, and we're on defense. So our team is now in the field. I'm in the dugout because, as I said, wasn't my best sport. I was also very young for that particular league, so I didn't play the full game. So at this particular period, I'm in the dugout. Our team's on the field. So there's a few of us in the dugout, coaches and a few players. The rest of the team's out on the field. One particular player on the team was our third baseman. And his brother was one of the coaches. So he and his brother apparently were not getting along. Maybe the coach / brother was coaching him or being maybe a bit harsh. I don't know. I don't know what led up to this. But from third base, and yelling across the field. The third baseman, who I think was 14 or 15 years old, lets out a big F-bomb directed towards his brother. Okay. Blank you. Okay. And of course, this is in plain view and earshot of everybody there, which included my dad, who is president of the league, and my grandmother, his mother, was also in attendance to watch me play the game. So from that standpoint, I was horrified that this happened, that was a player on my team. Immediately, the umpires ejected the kid from the game for obviously his unsportsmanlike behavior. So he's thrown out of the game. So now he's hotter than ever. So whatever he was mad at about pointed at his brother, now he was just over the top. He was completely enraged. And as he is being escorted off the field, there's a gate that takes you from the field of play past the bleachers and out to the parking lot. And as my dad gets up, as you know, again, he's the president of the league, so he's one of the league executives, obviously. He gets up to open the gate and basically just, to talk to the kid. And I'm looking right down outside the dugout because there's a straight shot visually as he was paraded by our dugout to go out this gate to be removed from the field. So my dad gets up, opens the gate, and this kid immediately sucker punches my dad. Now, so from a lot of different positions, this was absolutely stunning to me in every conceivable way. Again, my grandmother's there. That's her son. That's my dad. My mom was obviously in attendance. My dad was kind of acting on an official capacity. It wasn't like it was unnecessary or inappropriate for him to be in that position. He wasn't going to confront the kid physically or anything, but to talk to him. And the kid literally sucker punched my dad. Now, one thing you should know about my dad, he was at the time, he was a cop in San Francisco. So he's dealt with some pretty, shady characters and violent people and criminal behavior. So he's also a former Marine. So, again, not a sissy by any stretch of the imagination. Had he not kept his cool, he could have dismantled this kid. But of course, that would have just been awful for a grown man to take down a 14, 15-year-old kid. So my dad kept his composure. I didn't so much. It completely rattled me. It shook me to my core. It was very stunning to see, very shocking and all this. Now, I honestly don't remember because, as you might imagine by looking at me, my 13-year-old self is a little bit in my rearview mirror in terms of memories. It's well in my past, but still, I remember. I can picture it. What I don't remember at all is if I played the remainder of the year. I may have just quit, but I know for a fact that I didn't return to play out my eligibility as a 14 and 15-year-old. I don't remember playing out the rest of the year because I wanted nothing to do with the kid who did that to my dad. So if my memory serves me correctly, that was my last game I ever played. And I look back on that. Sometimes I regret it because, like I said, baseball was my favorite sport to play. I had trouble hitting the curveball. Some of you might watch this and relate. But that, I wasn't a great hitter. When I did hit it, I hit it hard and I did all right. But, some things were more challenging than others. So it's hard to hit a baseball. So it wasn't my best sport, but I loved the game. And to this day, I still love the game. But, and I miss playing it. I loved it, but my joy for the game was completely taken from me in that fleeting instant. Watching my dad be assaulted by one of my teammates. And it shook me. And my dad ended up having I think he had blood vessels in his eyes that burst because because it was blood red after that for a few days. And I never saw my dad as being weak, and I didn't perceive him as being weak even in that moment. Because again, I know what my dad did for a living. I knew his background. He was a man's man, and easily could have just destroyed this kid if he had responded carnally, let's just say, and physically and brutally. He could have, but he didn't. So as I got older, I only admired my dad's character and restraint that much more. But like I said, it took away my joy in the game, and I stopped playing, I think, pretty much from that moment on. And I'm not a quitter by nature at all. So that's why these episodes, the first two of the three, are particularly important to me, because something that I love so much, I was willing to give that up based on the behavior of other people. In this case, not directly to me. Attacking my family was very harsh. Now, if it had been somebody else, it might have freaked me out, but not to the point where it was so close to home and so personal that I would have quit. But in this case, there was no way I could continue on the team with this kid as my teammate, with his brother as my coach. It was way too personal. And again, if memory serves me correctly, that was the last game I ever played. And I do regret it at times. But looking back on it, I think if I was faced with the same situation, the same scenario, I'm not sure I would have chosen differently. But it did, maybe I would have come back the following years after that. Maybe that's something that would have been different if I thought it through. But again, my joy was gone, and what used to be fun now suddenly carried that memory, that lasting memory and imagery of my dad literally being physically assaulted by one of my teammates. So that's basically the first story. The next video, I'll share another story that's completely separate from this one, but another example of a time where I let the behavior and actions of other people, except this time directed to me. It was directly at me. So that'll be the next video. And believe me, once we get through the three, you'll see where I'm going with this. This is not the normal way I do things, in the sense that I try to always bring a really positive and encouraging message. But there ultimately is going to be that little tie-in at the end of this. So I hope you bear with me and stick around for the next two videos coming up. In the meantime, I do want to encourage you. I want you to be, I'm still here. And my dad lived a long, happy life, despite that moment, that snapshot in time. So the thing is like, hey, continue on, carry on. And the theme to all this is going to be, don't let the behaviors and actions of other people, whether it's directed at you or somebody else, take away your joy and your love for things based on a singular experience. So we'll get there. Stay with me. Thanks for joining me today. Be encouraged. Be an encourager. I look forward to talking again very, very soon. All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.